Boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Property Management Show. It's a privilege to be here with you. My name is Alex Osanenko. I'm the host, founder of the show. This is going on our fourth year here. The oldest, maybe it's not a most proudest thing, but the oldest running property management podcast. I want to thank all the listeners for your questions and your attention to the information we cover. But my biggest sort of takeaway for doing the podcast would be if you, my dear listener, went ahead and implemented some of the strategies and write me back what worked, what didn't, and then it helps me direct the show content to help you specifically. So my day job, I'm a CEO of a company called 4.5. We do marketing solutions for the property management firms. And today's guest is an amazing entrepreneur, author, coach, and just overall a very good person to learn from and learn with. Scott Fritz, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Great to be here.
Yeah, man, good. So let me read through a couple of your accolades, and we'll dive right in. I'll start with a very hard question. Like I don't want to ease us into this. We're just going to go in, and you can handle all of it, I'm sure. But so Scott is an active angel investor since 2001, and that's quite interesting. We'll uncover some of that later in the show. He founded a company called Human Capital, which is a PEO. And a PEO, for those of you that don't know, it's essentially an outsourced service for your HR, payroll, human resource, that kind of stuff. And Scott, how I know this is we have used PEO service for last 5 years. I wouldn't presume to get into the business without having somebody else handle all the legal aspects of human resources as well as payroll, firing, hiring, all that stuff. It's just amazing. So he had that company started in when, Scott, 97?
Yep, 1997.
97, grew to $170 million in revenue. And sold it. And then he also authored a book called The 40-Hour Work Year. We'll talk about that. And Scott also is a founder of growthconnect.com, which is where you do your coaching.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of places you can hook up with Scott's knowledge, but I think the best place and the nearest would be in Austin in a couple of weeks. April 16th through 19th, we have a conference called PM Grow Summit that I'm a co-founder in. And we got Scott roped in for a couple of things. He's going to teach a workshop, which I'll be there writing in my fat notebook along with all of you, as well as he's going to do a keynote. So very excited about all of that, Scott. Why don't I just fire a question at you and see where it takes us? This is the statement that you came up with, I think, in the book, as well as in a podcast you did with Jordan Muella on the Profitable Property Management Show. And here's the statement you make. If the owner stays in the business, it's actually worth less. Can you help us unpack this and just give us a high level, and then maybe we'll dive a little deeper into the why of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, I talk about the ownership paradox, which is exactly that concept. And without having the diagram in front of me, I'll explain it. When you think about working in the business versus working on the business, which, that's Michael Gerber 101 E-Myth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You go to sell your company from a standpoint of valuation. Simply stated, when you get an offer and you're in there working in the business, all the compensation you've been taking out of the business to run the business in the business will not be added back to the bottom line on the sale. So in my situation, Karen and myself, my business partner Karen and myself, we had not worked in or on the business for over 4 years. So all of our compensation we've been taking out of the business was added back to the bottom line because they didn't need to hire anybody to replace us. We'd already replaced ourselves in the business.
What if it's a top line sort of valuation methodology versus bottom line? Like EBITDA is more of a bottom line approach. We see a lot of acquisitions in our space, the property management space, are done on, and we'll talk more about this, but done on the top line. How does that affect the statement?
Well, true. And so it's still going to be a P&L function, though, because that line item of owner's wages. So if I was in charge of the sales department and I was pulling 200K a year in salary to run the sales department, they're going to have to go find somebody at 200K or less around there to replace me when I leave. So either way, that line item in the business is still having to be filled in. So if you look at a company and say, hey, we're doing 2 million a year, we're putting 500 grand on the bottom line, and it's running itself, versus we're making 2 million a year and 500 grand on the bottom line, but the owner is in there working in the business, I'm going to say to you, well, I've got to buy out the owner, I've got to have an earn out for the owner, and I've got to replace that owner's salary. So even though it's a bottom line final number, it still doesn't make you as valuable. And as I write in the book, Alex, is the real sad part is you've lost all that time. So the money's important, but you can always make more money. You can't make more time. So all those days you've spent in the business, working in the business, is time you could have been with your family, starting other companies, going on vacations, trips, starting podcasts, speaking at conferences, all that good stuff that really, in my mind, is what a true entrepreneur should be doing, not working in the business, making the donuts every day.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up. No, I agree with that. However, what about, I'm just going to poke at this, right? We're just going to poke at this because I don't think I fully agree. And I think it's just because I don't fully understand. It's not because I disagree. It's just I have a gap of knowledge that maybe you'll be able to fill. And I think my listeners may feel the same way. Isn't when the acquisition happens, Scott, wouldn't the acquirer pull the numbers out and still evaluate the company based on as if the owner wasn't there, because the owner won't draw any more money? So that's one aspect of it. So think of it this way. A lot of PM property owners run personal expenses through the business, right?
Right.
Have cars, boats, what have you, right?
Right.
You know, justify a boat to IRS, I don't know, but they do. And so when the acquisition happens, and we sort of have a lot of customers that acquire each other and acquire, other companies. And sort of we see a lot of these very specific things happen. And one of those things is the acquirer will still pay for that revenue because those expenses are going away and that's going to become a profit. Like, how does that connect with you, with your statement?
Yeah, so again, I'll just use an analogy. So again, back to my number. Let's say you're doing, and you're right on the top line valuation. I understand where you're coming from. You're basically buying a book of clients or a list of clients. My analogy is more about what I call building an enterprise business, where the company has more value than just its book of clients. It has intellectual property, it has brand value, things like that, which is really where you get a nice number for a business. I mean, if you're just selling a book of clients, whether it's a property management company, insurance company, whatever, you're going to get a rather low multiple. So in that range, if we're talking in the $1 million to 2 million range, the numbers may not be that affected. But what's really affected is if I'm looking at buying a property management company, and I know that owner has to stay in there to run the business, I'm personally not going to be willing to offer top line or bottom line the same multiple as I would if the company was already running itself without the owner, if that makes sense. Because I've got to work with the owner. I've got to deal with their ego, their flaws, all the things they've already thought about with the business that now I'm going to say, I mean, I've looked at these before. So we looked at one in Vegas to buy. The person was pulling about 110K a year. And we offered her on her number about a 1.2 times top line, but we're going to cut her salary from 120 down to 60 because that's part of how we're going to pay off the note on the business. So to me, it's still factored in whether the person stays on or not. That money, if it's going to be a seller carry or you're going to buy it outright, those dollars have to come from somewhere.
So here's another poke at it. And I hope it's okay if I'm poking a bit.
Sure.
You have heard of a gentleman called Greg Crabtree?
Yeah, I used to coach his company.
Excellent. So, okay, that's the interesting connection. So his book, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, is really interesting book. Simple to a point where when you kind of get into it, you're like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. And then it just sort of dawns on you. And I think one of the key principles in this whole book is to eliminate gamemanship, like eliminate games with IRS and taxes and also true up your salary based on the position you hold in the business and make up the difference with distributions. Don't go and pay yourself $30,000 that's the other side of it, right? Pay yourself $30,000 and then take $200K in distributions to save money. IRS will come after you. And vice versa. Don't pay yourself $200,000. If your job is only worth $100,000, so make up a distribution. Like, what do you think about that strategy versus sort of removing yourself as an owner from the business?
Yeah, so we always, again, I speak to the company I sold without my other investments that I do, but Karen and I always paid ourselves a salary commensurate with what it would cost to replace us in the business. And that way the IRS is fine with that. That's basically what the rule is. So in my role as a sales, VP of sales, if you will, I hired that person, but overseeing the sales side of the business, I still paid myself what it would cost to have somebody come in and take over that role in the business. And then we took the rest in distributions. So I agree with that. The last thing I want to do is get into some audit because of, some payroll tax I was trying to avoid. To me, it's chasing pennies instead of dollars. What it is.
Shifting gears for a second, chasing pennies. I like that. I don't know so you brought up something very interesting. Actually, I'm going to pin it right now. I'm going to let you know what that is when I'm going to pin it until we get to acquisitions. And that is IP and brand value. And how come in the PM space, these things, in fact, I put a webinar together and a methodology on how to evaluate your brand and how because property management companies, a lot of them, established ones, have a significant brand value and it's almost never being accounted for. Somehow it's always a book of clients, as you mentioned, but let's pin this for a second. I want to go back and ask you this question, like for my listeners, what revenue should a company be to consider bringing on outsourcing human HR, human resources, like the PEO company like you ran? Like we use TriNet, but what revenue would you recommend where it starts making sense?
Yeah, so I always told my team, so we had clients that were, honestly, as small as one employee, and they did it for insurance reasons. We had clients that were over 500 employees. So it's more to me about a head count and a complexity of the business than it is a revenue number. So, something I like to tell people, it's not so much about where you're at, it's where you want to be. So if somebody came to us and said, hey, we're a software company, we have 10 employees, we're now doing this all in-house, I'd say, okay, that's great. But we want to spread to 4 other states and put sales reps in each state, then I'd say you need a PEO. Because to go and spread yourself that thin in those states, every state's different. And those were a lot of our clients, honestly. We'd have a client that have headquarters, let's say in Michigan with 50 employees, and then they have another 50 to 100 spread around the country all over the place. And that's really where the sweet spot is for a PEO. The other side, which you already hit on, which is just litigation and liability. I never forget this. I tell this story a lot. When I used to do proposals and I was still selling all the time, my 401k product was buried about halfway in a proposal. And I'm sitting there going through this with one of the prospects. I get to the 401k page and he goes, wait a minute, you become the fiduciary for the 401k? And I said, yeah. He shut the proposal on me. He said, if you told me that at the first page, I would have signed up right away. He goes, I got sued 3 years ago for giving, financial stock advice to an employee at a Christmas party and got sued for 150K.
Ooh.
So for him, that one pain point was taking over the fiduciary of 401k, which, that's a huge one when you get into litigation situations. That can pay for a PEO for 5 years, just that lawsuit that you avoid.
Yeah, and access to group insurance rates for us, that's what sold us about 4 or 5 years ago. I think we're 6 or 7 employees, and we did have out-of-state folks. We still do, and it's just the way to work. It is costing some money. Like but it's sort of like taking out a payroll, and you almost don't see it. Right, it never hits.
Well, somebody again. I'm not here to push PEOs on people. I mean, I think it's a great service, but somebody's got to do the work anyway. And so when you factor in what that truly would cost you to bring in somebody at the level of experience and background, not to mention the cost savings, you can't even come close. I mean, we used to save people on average 30 to 40% real dollars in their business by bringing us on versus an in-house system.
Yeah. And so here's a good takeaway for those of you who are walking your dog and about to walk upstairs and turn off the podcast. Consider shopping for a PEO, for outsourced HR for your company. I think it's a good investment. We've done it over the last 5 years. Scott doesn't have a stake in it. I don't have a stake in it. This is just plain advice from 2 guys who run businesses. All right. Next sort of shift is we're going to talk a little bit about your book, but I want to make sure I understood the premise of the book. And the premise of the book, and I made a mistake, Scott. I like the Audible so much that I've ordered your book on Audible. I'll listen to it. It's enjoyable listen, but every time there's a section where you get to reflect on stuff, like I felt like I'm missing out. Like, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the business? And I'm beginning to think about it, but you've already started the next chapter, right? The Audible just keeps on going. So it was difficult for me to reflect, to have the discipline to pause and actually work through the exercises. One of my one of our keynote speakers, Joey Coleman, has a PDF that goes with this book that actually helps, that has work exercises through it. Do you have something like that for your book?
Yeah, so the hard copy or soft copy or the PDF version ebook, the book's very short. It's a 90-page book with 38 pages of exercises. So the exercises are built right into the book. And to your point, people who have done the Audible or have read the book say, you know what, pass this on to people read the book first all the way front to back, and then go back and do the exercises. Because otherwise you go down that rabbit hole on the first set of exercises, and you get stuck without moving through the whole book.
Oh, that's it. That's an interesting idea, right? So read the book, get the premise, and so let's see if I got the premise right. So I think like what you've tried to do here is put a playbook together for entrepreneurs to start, because you do have some inspirational stories on starting the business, seeking out the idea, going after it. Not a lot, but there's some there. But more or less, it's about growing, and moving the owner into more of a passive role, and then selling the business. Is that the premise? Is that what you wanted to deliver?
Yeah. So again, I go back to the E-Myth. The E-Myth talks about moving from working in the business to on the business. And I read that book before I started my company. And as I started to grow my business, I said, you know what? I was already doing angel investing. I was like, hey, I can move from even working on the business. I can move to the role of passive investor in my own company, like I do with my angel investments. And then as I talk about in the book, acquisition doesn't necessarily mean you get acquired. You can also go out and acquire others. So you'll see when I do the talk, it's not about exiting your company. It's setting up your business so that it can exit at any time for the maximum multiple it should receive. It's no different than you don't let your house run down and let the weeds grow up and the roof fall in and then go sell it. You fix it up when you're ready to sell it. It doesn't mean you sell it. It just means it's at a point where it could be sold for maximum value.
That's such a good analogy. We've lived in this house in San Bruno, which was a great house, but older, and the kitchen was always old. And we were about to sell the house, or actually we're going to rent it, not sell it. And so we remodeled the kitchen, and we have like 3 weeks to live in the house. We're like, darn, like, man, I'd never seen granite countertops this beautiful. Like, I want to stay here now. It was that much better. And then so we lost 4 years of slumming it in the 1950s kitchen, then remodeled it and rented out the house. Yeah, right. Not a great idea. Right. So I think your point is well taken on this one.
Yeah.
So what about like the flip side of this? What about entrepreneurs who actually enjoy being the CEO, running the company strategically, giving direction? Like say like myself, like I actually enjoy the work. Now there's consideration about like stepping away, what that might look like, what other opportunities are out there. But let's say somebody is truly thriving. They have a great team. Everything works. You keep hiring. The company's growing at a predictable rate. Market is good for this particular business. What do you recommend? Like, do they need to read your book? Do they need to do what you did?
So again, to my point, the exit is what I did. But you don't need to go there, meaning you can go to the 40-hour work month or, whatever you want to go to. If you're doing what you love and you truly love doing that, then stay in there, create an evergreen business, create a legacy business. I'm not saying that at all. The sad thing that I see over and over again with entrepreneurs is that they get so stuck in the business and then even don't get time to run on the business that they lose the time that they should have had. Or worst case, and you're aware of this, a lot of divorces, a lot of kids who don't know their parents or their dad or mom who was the entrepreneur. Again, I had a great family childhood and my dad was an entrepreneur, but when I was young, he was gone before I woke up and he was gone after I went to bed pretty much every day. And we're real tight and have a good relationship, but one of the things I really wanted to make sure with my kids is, it was kind of funny, is, they really had time with me, and I really got to be part of their lives and got to help them become the individuals they are today. And so again, you have to decide how important is that, or what role do you want to play at that level? Because my first daughter was born 2 years before I started my business, and my second daughter was born 2 years after I started the business. So it's kind of funny because the way my business worked out, both of my girls, they come home from school and say, Dad, we're supposed to come and talk about what our parents do at school, and we don't know what to tell them because you're always home.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So how old are they now?
My oldest is 22. She's married, lives in Houston, and my youngest, she'll be 20 next month, and she goes to the University of Oklahoma.
Great, man. Great. Well, so I have two girls as well, and very, very similar. The first one was born 2 years before the business, and the second one about 2 years after. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have a problem with me staying home. That's for sure. That's that may be something to get into as I follow your advice in the future. Now, I hope you're enjoying this show. We'll take you back there in just under 60 seconds. But first, are you running a property management company that is looking to grow by 100 properties or more over the next 12 months? Are you looking for a partner who can design and implement all of the marketing so you can focus on operations, customer experience, and profit? Are you willing to spend $300 to $600 per owner as you add them to your portfolio? And finally, do you have adequate resources on your end to dedicate to completing your part of the project so your marketing can be activated and all the leads start flowing in? Right? If the answers to those questions is yes, that means you are ready to grow and scale, and we here at 4.5 want to help you to do so. Log into 4.5.com, hit free consultation, and set up a time with one of my team members to go through your business and figure out how 4.5 can deliver the growth you're looking for. Now back to the show. In the property management space, what you just described, a lot of times you say you want to be you don't want to own a job, you want to own a business. And working on the business, fine, being CEO, running the company. But as you have this exercise, putting an org chart together and checking the boxes, what is it that you are like your best, what is it called, unique ability? I think that's kind of a concept I want to explore on later in my life and reading and stuff. I'm still not that good. And I think it's Gary Keller.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a very interesting aspect. And so like, let's say I'm within my unique ability and all that, but also the other side of it is like, as you said, you're just slaving away and you're just plugging holes and you're trying to, you're trying to make things work and meet the payroll, and your people are, desperate and overworked and blah, blah, blah. I see a lot of that in property management.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's as I talk in the book, it's a lot of mom and pop, what I call mom and pop businesses. They don't own a business, they own a job. Meaning, I always use my dry cleaner as the example. I mean, the dry cleaner I go to here outside of Austin, it's the same lady. Every day, no matter what time of the day, on the weekends, in the mornings, in the afternoon, send my wife by to pick up, Emma's there working the counter. She owns a job. If Emma doesn't show up, the store's not open, there's no money coming in. So again, if that's the life you want, I don't think it's much of a life, but if that's the life you want, then go for it. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of those businesses. I mean, it's the majority of small companies in the US, but I just think there's a better way, and we all have 24 hours in a day, and how we choose to use it kind of defines where we go with it.
So let's say there are some listeners that are in that category, but are ready to elevate. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I ran a small business. Like, this company was small, 7 years ago, 6 years ago. It's tough, man. It's tough. So what, just give us maybe a couple steps what's the first thing you would do?
So the first thing that I tell anybody that's, in the position of running the business, owning a job, I say, take your annual compensation, so your total annual compensation, and divide by 2,000. So that'll roughly give you your hourly rate. Okay. And I do this exercise. I'm sure I'll do it here at the event in a couple weeks. So let's say, I don't know, you're making $100,000 a year, total comp. So that's everything. That's your perks. That's your, your distributions, everything. and divide by 2,000, that's $50 an hour. All right. And now I say, list all the things you are doing currently in the business. All right. And it takes some time. It gets to my decision matrix in the book. There might be 30 things you're doing in the business. All right. Now, in the next 30 to 60 days, I want you to pick the 3 that you absolutely need to relinquish. You need to stop doing these 3 things in the next 30 to 60 days, as long as they're under $50 an hour. So, for example, you're going out and presenting proposals to people, or you're going out and changing, use property management, you're going out and changing locks on doors as an example. I don't know if somebody's doing that or not, but obviously you can hire that done for less than $50 an hour and get these off your list. So the idea is over 9 to 12 months, you move those 30 down to maybe 5 to 10 that you still are doing. But those are things, high value, high dollar things that are using your talents, your pay grade more productively in your business. I say this a lot, talk to people, and you'll hear this a lot at the conference. How are things going? Oh, busy, busy, busy. We're busy. And I stop people. I used to do this a lot. And I say, look, are you busy or are you productive? And so I'm back to that again. I don't think you're being productive if you're doing things that you could hire somebody to do at a lower wage than what you make on an hourly basis.
Very sage. That's an interesting advice. And I think that's a step-by-step process that anyone can implement. I can see reasons why, you have to have employees that are able to do it and all that. What about your income? Like, let's say I'm the business, connect this exercise to what I take home today. Let's say I'm that business owner. I'm ready to sort of start elevating. I'm going through the exercise. I need to hire somebody. Do I need to be ready to give up some of my money today in order to make this company work in the future?
Absolutely. So in the book, I believe you have to. I haven't met anybody who's done it any other way. I say in the book, it's the big question exercise. So my question was, because I was moving from Michigan to Vegas with my business partner, I said, Karen, I believe we can transition out of the business if we take a substantial pay cut for about a year and put that money back into the business. So that was, we bought a building, we put in some new software, some IT, we hired 5 key executives we hadn't hired before. It was about a 60% pay cut. So Karen and I took about a 60% pay cut per year and put that money back in the business. The funny thing is, Alex, within 9 months, I was back to making what I was when I took the cut. Now, that was a lot quicker than I expected. It also included, which I'll talk about at the event, 9/11 happened during that time. So that was a big, scary thing that really tanked our business for about 3 months. But it's very doable. And really what my book's about is the mindset of the entrepreneur is the biggest weakness of a business. So if you're in the mindset, we were saying earlier, can't, never did anything. If you're in the mindset that I can't hire somebody, that I can't train somebody, that the business can't grow, you're right. Just as if you say, I can hire somebody, I can train somebody, the business can grow. It's mindset. That's what it is.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I remember the story in the book, and I think it's towards the beginning. And is it at the same time when you, Karen, actually wrote numbers independently and those numbers kind of aligned? Is that, yeah.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a lesson to align with your partner as well, right? Because I think you went through that with a partner where both were aligned. Had she not been aligned, I imagine this book may not have existed.
Yeah, we probably, in reality, there were 3 options. We could sell, she could buy me out, or I could buy her out, or we could transition out of the business. Those were the 3 options. We had a very strong buy-sell with a shotgun clause. So if I made an offer and she didn't want it, she was then forced to buy me at that number. So we had very structured ways of doing things, which I also think is important. If you really want to know, if you have business partners, and I'll say this at the event, the one thing you want to take away from my talk is go put a buy-sell in place if you don't have it, because that will just avoid a lot of mess and a lot of attorney fees down the road.
Ooh, another massive takeaway. If you're walking your cat and you're one of those people who walk your cats, and you're walking upstairs and got about to turn off this podcast, the second takeaway was just dropped. I think this is a really good one. Have buy-sell agreement. And I think none of us, I have partners too, and we don't think about these things initially. So that is a really good advice. Now, shifting gears to more property management specific stuff, right? We see a lot of consolidation. In fact, I've been saying this for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah, we've seen a lot of people buying other property management companies. but now it's coming to a point where it's just red hot. Like everybody's buying somebody and somebody wants to sell to anybody. It's just that crazy. Now, your experience with SGI Property Management, you're definitely a strategic advisor for them and are involved. What do you see? What do you see as some of the mistakes people make in property management acquisitions? You went through a few, you've heard of a few. What's some of the things that just are broken in your opinion in this industry?
Well, again, and total transparency here. Tim and I have looked at acquiring, I think it's now up to 6 or 7 property management companies. None of them have gone through. And I told him about this before we got started because I used to own a P&C insurance agency in Vegas. And the reason I bought it, this was after I sold my other company. The reason I bought it was I was going to go acquire small P&C companies, get it up to a reasonable size, and then sell it. And the main reason people don't sell, this is to your question, it has nothing to do with the money. It's a mindset. It's a fear of not having something to do. It's well, what do I do once I sell? And I always tell people, it's not the price, it's the terms, right? So you go to a buyer and you say, all right, we'll buy you at even 2 times top line, but here's the terms. We're going to give you 25% down. It's going to be a seller carry over 2 years. You're going to stay on over those 2 years, and we're going to transition you out of the business. And then if you want to keep a little, what I call second bite of the apple at the end and hang on to 10 to 20%, we can do that. The deal is the best deal that there ever been a probably here out there from that standpoint. And we're very flexible with that. So again, I'm back to mindset. I hate to say it, but it's what's broken. These are mom and pop businesses in most cases. They got 100, 150 doors. They're still very active in running the business. And they have not created that executive team or that decision matrix to move themselves out of those roles. We had a person, great offer. I think we were at 2 times. And her reason for not selling to us was her CPA said she was going to pay too much in taxes. I mean, that was the reason. I mean, you go back to Greg Crabtree, right? He has 2 ways. Says there's only 2 reasons you're not paying a lot of taxes. You don't have a good business, or you're committing fraud.
Yeah,
that's it.
He said I can determine how successful you are by the size of the check you write to the IRS.
Correct.
And another friend of mine, Mike Catalano, always said his tax attorney. He always complains to his tax attorney he's paying a lot of taxes. So his tax attorney says, look, you give me the money and I'll gladly pay taxes on them. You wouldn't have to worry about it, right? That's, right. Hey,
Right. Right.
And there's also ways to structure this in more of a payment over time, right? Not bulk sum initially. And so that reduces liability.
So I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but again, I go back to it's really mindset. I heard this a long time ago, and it's absolutely true. Remember, most people that sell a business, it's the one time they'll ever sell a business. So they've only done it once, or they're only thinking about doing it once. It's really highly unlikely they'll ever do it again. However, the people that are buying them do it for a living. They do it on a weekly basis. So you are automatically at a disadvantage as a seller when it comes to selling your business, unless you really have a real, a high-end business that's kicking off a lot of cash. Now you can afford to hire somebody to come in and coach you through that.
Very interesting. So mom and pop, and it gets emotional, but I see a lot of acquisitions deal come through. Why didn't yours come through, you think? Or did you say no, or they said no, or is it a combination? Give me 1 or 2 examples, maybe.
Yeah, I think the reason a lot of them, again, just the ones we've gone after haven't happened. People are stuck in the mindset that it sounds cool to sell, and then when we're like, hey, it's just like buying a property. Hey, we're ready. We got the money. The powder's dry. We're ready to wire the money. It's almost like, oops, I hadn't really thought this through enough in my own mind of what I'm going to do next, where I'm going to go. And although we've offered people earnouts where they can stay on and work, or even stay on as partners, and that's a lot of what we like to do. I think that's the biggest hang up for entrepreneurial small run companies. And I would say this too, Alex. These people aren't really entrepreneurs; they're business owners. Okay, there's a difference there.
Yep.
An entrepreneur they jumped off the cliff, started the business, and probably have their hands in 5 or 6 other things anyway. So for them to close and sell is a much more likely event than a business owner who's been running this property management company for 10, 15, 20 years. It's been their baby. They probably got kids working in the family, maybe a spouse, relatives. It's a way of life more than it is just a business. For Karen and I, our company was just a business. I mean, in our business plan, our plan was to sell the business in 10 years. We sold it in 10 years and 3 months. So, be intentional, right? I mean, if whatever your intention is, so don't go out and say, I want to sell the business, I guess, because I want to sell it. What is your end, right? Begin with the end in mind. What are you going to go to when you sell it? You have to have something to go to make that sale make sense for you.
Wow. Yeah. No, very good. What do you think about, the differences between entrepreneur and a business owner? But I think to graduate into entrepreneurship, you have to be a business owner. But you have to be a business owner who has the time to self-educate, read books, get coached, go to seminars, go to conferences, become an entrepreneur, build wealth for your family, and build the legacy that way. That's not for everyone.
Right. Correct.
Some people ski, some snowboard.
Yeah, just admit you're a business owner and do the best you can do as a business owner. I agree 110%. There's this concept of an entrepreneurial CEO. I mean, it's almost like a unicorn. I mean, there's very few of them out there. Most entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. Like myself, I'm a builder. I like to go build things and then get out of the way and move on to something else. Business owners like to go in, run the business, and run the business. Put in the structure, hire the people, oversee the business. They might be there their whole life. They have no problem with that. That's a mindset that works for a lot of people.
You brought up a good point. I think you and I both are very similar in that perspective. Like I do consider myself a builder, and now that my company is all stabilized, we have incredible executive team. We have just we've done the best quarter we've ever had, and there's things like I feel like I'm almost disrupting with my sort of spearhead. always going to battle. Every time I walk into this darn office, man, I put a helmet on.
Yep.
I put a helmet, I take out my spear, what have you, and I go, man. And that's, to be honest with you, I think, partially is disruptive to the people who actually are tasked with running this thing.
Yeah, if I engage a new client, I'm sitting down with someone like yourself and I say, all right, something I need to be clear on before we start this thing. How involved or how many touches are you putting on your team on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in things you have no business touching? Okay. Typical entrepreneurial CEO, not a business owner as much, but a typical entrepreneur go, oh, they're autonomous. They have total freedom. I allow them to fail. They have budget responsibility. They're totally on their own. I go, okay, so you have no problem me asking that same question to these same people. And I go in and by the first conversation, it's like, oh, you mean this stack of stuff over here where they want to sign and look through before I send it out? You mean that kind of involvement? That's a typical conversation, right? I wouldn't say it's quite micromanaging, but it's definitely an oversight mindset. And you know where this all comes from. I mean, it's this simple. It's the T word, trust. If you can't get that strong trust going on in your organization, I don't know as an owner or an entrepreneur, you ever totally can back out and transition out of the business. Another great book, Speed of Trust. That's by Stephen Covey Jr., not the senior who passed away, it's his son. Speed of Trust, awesome book. Great exercises to take your teams through. I do a whole half-day coaching session on it because it's so good. When you get that trust level with your executive team, again, you now as the entrepreneur, the owner, truly can back out because you have the trust.
Well, we've been implementing EOS for the last 18 months, and it's. I mean, this company was run I think 18 months ago. Like, this is what, do you have a sec? Do you have a sec? Do you have a minute? Like, I think you mentioned that in the book. It just never ends, right? It never ends. And we have 20, almost 30 employees, and everybody needs something, and they're sort of almost afraid to make a decision because I can shortcut. Like I already know what they don't know, and so for them it's just an easy shortcut. It's like me asking my dad a solution to a math problem, and my dad never gave me an answer ever. And he's a PhD in physics. Like he could do it quickly in algebra and geometry back in the school, and he would never give me an answer, but he'll help me work through it. I think that's very valuable. And so I was giving them answers because I wanted to run fast. We're growing fast, but I think EOS brings the unbelievable discipline. For those of you who don't know and listening, and I'm just sort of skimming through it, it's Entrepreneur Operating System. And the book is called Traction by Gino Wickman. Go pick it up. It will change your life. But I think you need to be 4 or 5, 6 employees before that really will take hold. although I read the book a while back and we just implemented 18 months ago, started implementation 18 months ago. What do you think about EOS?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I do business coaching, and I'm a development partner now with MAP out of California. A buddy of mine bought the business last year, so I'm working with them on growing MAP, but very similar concepts, right? What we call vital factors, or your key performance indicators, metrics, building your one-page plan, integrator, implementer, all those same concepts. And we always tell people, look, whether it's EOS, whether it's Gazelles, whether it's Strategic Coach, whether it's MAP, use somebody. The worst thing you can do is nothing. And that's the analysis paralysis of not making a decision. That's the real bad thing. And again, we're back to mindset again, entrepreneurs. There's tons of really well-run, profitable businesses out there, but things like EOS or MAP, they just make them run better, quicker, and more profitably. And again, back to my main goal of my book is they let the owner and the entrepreneur enjoy life more and not be stuck in the day-to-day grind.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, there's got to be economic and personal value from putting your family in the back seat for the first 2-3 years, putting your life on the back seat and spending, burning out 90-hour weeks just to spin this thing up. There's got to be, like, sometimes I feel guilty not coming to work. I'll be honest with you. Like, I go fishing for a day. Even my wife says, everybody's working and you're fishing. I'm like, that's what I do a lot of my thinking, and that's my thinking space. But it's like there's a little bit of that. Like, it's almost like, I don't know. I feel guilty.
Well, but that's a mindset, right? So my dad said to me, I still remember this as a kid. Nobody lies on their deathbed saying they wish they would have worked more.
Right.
So I mean, you got to design that for yourself. I mean, I've technically been, pretty much semi-retired since I was 40 years old. I sold my business when I was 40. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, that's one of the things I tell people. I will never go back and start a business from scratch. I'll invest in businesses. I'll do strategy planning for businesses. I'll sit on advisory boards. But that's one thing I'm not going to go back and do. It just was not. I mean, it was a great experience at the time, and I was 30 years old, and I can handle the stress and pressure, as I talk about in the book, up to a point. But it's just not how I'm wired now. I mean, I don't need more stuff. I mean, that's just not who I am. I mean, if you need a lot of stuff, then you probably got to keep working. So.
Speaking about advisory boards, when we're done with the recording of this podcast, I'd like to chat with you. So don't hang up. Don't hang up yet, or that quickly. All right. So I have a couple more questions, and I think we'll boil it down. We're about 45 minutes in. That's good. My longest lasting dog walkers are about to come home. So I want to give them some third takeaway. And I think we already have 4 or 5 takeaways. The one thing you and I talked about pre-show real quick, I'm like, hey man, you seem like you have this internal energy, like you shine. It's like, yeah, I just came back from the gym, whatever. What is the routine you subscribe to? And what do you recommend? Like, the only thing I do in the morning that really, really punches me in the face is I take a cold shower for 2 minutes, 60 seconds, like straight up cold. And like after the shower, it's 2 minutes of just ice cold water on you. And that really does the trick for me. But that's only 2 minutes. I have young daughters. I can't really do, or I think I can't get up early and do. But what is the routine you recommend for healthy body, healthy mind kind of a thing?
Yeah, again, going to Covey again, the 7 habits. I mean, that's kind of the Bible, so to speak, of the things you need to be working on. So, I get up in the morning and I listen to a recorded program. It's called Bible in 1 Year. It takes 25 minutes. So I go through that in the morning and get my head straight, around God and what the main role I play in that. Secondly, I do some journaling. So I spend about 15 minutes kind of reflecting on what I'm going to do today and things that are top of mind for me. And then typically I'll go to the gym. I don't go to the gym every day, especially when I travel. But typically I'll go to the gym 30, 45 minutes. It's weights and cardio. And the one thing, and I used to be in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and they have forums, and I was in that for 11 years. And there was a gentleman in my group who was wanting to get healthier with his body, and he asked for everybody to give him one tip of what they do. And I told him, I said, look, I drink a lot of water. I mean, I don't have anything else to drink in the morning before I've had at least 2 bottles of water. That to me really gets the organs going. It really flushes the system and really vitalizes me. I think a lot of people drink not nearly enough water. I mean, there's all kinds of studies on this, but I'm pretty much in a habit now. I drink 8 to 9 bottles of water a day. I don't drink soda. I do have an alcoholic beverage now and again, so I'm not that, but I do drink coffee. I drink 2 cups of coffee. That's it. So if like I get back from working out, I'll drink 2 cups of coffee. My wife was a personal trainer for 15 years, so we don't eat a lot of bread, we don't eat a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm kind of getting into the health side of it, but those are the things that really I think give me the energy. Like if I have too much sugar, or I have go have pasta or something one night, I can feel it in my body. It really drags me down.
Yeah, I've been on keto, not to divulge into the dieting and health too much, but I think there's something to be said for the energy when you just have a salad for lunch. Like I do this bulletproof coffee, which is essentially some really healthy bean, butter, and coconut oil, right? And it just there's no breakfast. There's no need for breakfast. It powers your body. It's slow release energy, really, really good. And then you walk into 12 o'clock, get a salad, maybe some chicken, and then you have more or less decent meal dinner, but don't go nuts. It's been really. I think I've doubled the energy.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier, so just not get on the diet, but back to the entrepreneurial routine. And I basically make my coaching clients do this. And I always did it on a Friday. You can pick the day you want, but an hour a week, go somewhere quiet. It could be literally the library or a park or some quiet place you like. Turn off all your devices and just sit for an hour and take note, what I call journaling or whatever you want to do. You can do it electronically if you want. You can do it. I know people that do it with a voice recorder. Just start talking about how the week's gone, the things you hit, the things you missed, what you're going to do next week to fix those things. And then just kind of let your mind spiral a little bit about ideas that you're having, entrepreneurial ideas, and record these and go back and look at them every week as you do your next weekly adventure. And I mean, that's how we came up. Honestly, I came up with it. What I did was the pod model, the pointer distribution model. It came out of one of these afternoons sitting quietly and just reflecting on where the business was and some of the struggles we were having. And you talked about going fishing. It's the same concept. Just get out of your day-to-day busyness, back to busy again, and actually focus on those things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point for us to call this one. I think the pod model is a very interesting concept. I don't think we have time to cover it in depth, give it justice, but I will want to invite my listeners who are still with me and Scott after about 45 minutes to the PM Growth Summit, which is April 17th through 19th at in Austin. It's gonna be a great show, and I'm prepared to walk in and walk out a different person, right? I'm going to be transformed. I'm open to that. And I hope my dear listeners, you are as well. pmgrowsummit.com. Scott, thank you kindly for your time. Please stay on. It's been a pleasure having you on, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. It was a blast.